Something happened that they never saw coming, and before this is over, you are going to understand exactly why the thing that was designed to destroy you just became the most dangerous weapon you have ever held. Stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through is not a story about love or loss or the romantic mythology people sell when they want you distracted. This is a story about war, about strategy, about the precise moment a calculated operation collapsed on itself and left the architects of that collapse staring at the wreckage of their own design. This is the story of how you survived something that was built specifically for you, tailored to your weaknesses, engineered around your hungers, and deployed with the kind of precision that only comes from years of watching someone very, very carefully. They were watching you. That is the part most people cannot sit with. The idea that your patterns were being studied, your triggers cataloged, your moments of vulnerability mapped like terrain before an invasion. The idea that something out there looked at the specific texture of your longing and said, "We can use this." But that is exactly what happened. And the sooner you stop flinching from that truth, the sooner you understand the full magnitude of what you just survived. They were not guessing. They were not improvising. They had data on you. They had time on you. And they built something that they believed was undefeatable, something calibrated so precisely to the shape of your hope that they expected you to walk straight into it with your eyes open and still not be able to resist. Here is what they knew. They knew you were different. They knew you had been operating on a frequency that most people around you could not access or even detect. They had watched you build something quiet and slow and deeply intentional, something that did not make noise yet, but had the kind of structural integrity that, given enough time, would become immovable. And that scared them more than any loud declaration, more than any visible power move, more than any obvious display of strength. What scared them was the silence of your becoming, the way you kept refining, kept sharpening, kept going inward when everyone expected you to burn out or give up or finally do what most people do and trade your vision for comfort. You did not do that, and they could not afford to let you keep going. So they built a person, or they found one, or they activated something that had been orbiting your life like a satellite waiting for its signal. It does not matter which, because the result was the same. Someone appeared, and they appeared wearing exactly the right face. Not randomly attractive, not generically compelling, but specifically, surgically designed to reach past your defenses and speak directly to the part of you that had been waiting the longest. This person knew your language, not because they had studied the same things you had, but because they were programmed to mirror the things that lived deepest in you. They referenced the wounds you had never let anyone else see. They moved with the kind of intensity that matched yours. They saw you in a way that felt ancient, like recognition across a long silence, like finally being legible to another human being after years of speaking in a tongue no one else knew. And here is the terrifying genius of it. It was not entirely fake. That is the part that makes this so sophisticated, so difficult to defend against, and so perfectly cruel. If it had been entirely manufactured, you would have felt it. Your instincts would have flagged it, your body would have recoiled, something would have broken the spell early. But they did not send you a lie. They sent you something half real, something that carried just enough genuine frequency to feel undeniable, just enough authentic light to seem trustworthy, just enough real darkness to feel familiar rather than alarming. They sent you something that made your own discernment work against you, because your discernment said yes, and it was not entirely wrong. That is the level of sophistication you were up against. Not a cheap trick, a masterwork of manipulation dressed as destiny. The timing was not accidental either. This is the detail that should make your blood run cold, and then immediately hot with the understanding of how closely you were being tracked. They did not send this distraction when you were at your lowest, when you were already confused and off track and easy to knock over. That would have been amateur strategy. They waited. They waited until you were starting to rise, until the thing you had been building was beginning to take shape. Until your vision was sharpening from vague aspiration into concrete direction, until your power was condensing from scattered potential into focused force. That is when they deployed the operation, right at the inflection point, right at the exact moment when losing your focus would do the most damage, when pulling you off the path would cost you the most ground. They were not trying to stop someone who was failing. They were trying to stop someone who was about to succeed. And that distinction matters more than anything else in this entire story, because it tells you something you need to hear. The fact that they came for you at that precise moment is not evidence that you were vulnerable. It is evidence that you were dangerous. It is evidence that whatever you were building was real enough, significant enough, threatening enough to their entire investment in your confusion that they could not allow it to continue undisturbed. They come for the ones who are becoming something. They leave the ones who are already lost alone, because the already lost are doing the job for them. You were not lost. You were arriving, and they could not afford for you to arrive. Now, here is where the story starts to turn. Here is the moment their entire operation began to fracture from the inside, because they made a mistake. Not a small one, a foundational one, the kind of error that only happens when you believe your own propaganda so completely that you stop examining your assumptions. They believed that you were still operating from the old version of yourself, the one who would collapse under the weight of finally feeling seen, the one who would abandon everything for the promise of belonging, the one who had not yet learned that what you needed most was not someone to complete you, but the unshakable knowledge that you were never incomplete to begin with. They designed this operation for a version of you that no longer existed. They sent their weapon to the wrong address, and they did not find out until it was already too late. You got close to this person. Let us not pretend otherwise, because sanitizing what happened would dishonor the lesson it contained. You felt the pull. You spent time inside it. You turned it over in your mind like something precious and strange. Maybe you lost some nights to it. Maybe you felt the specific vertigo of being understood in a way that made everything before it seemed dimmer. Maybe you reached toward it with the part of you that had been waiting a long time to stop reaching in the dark. None of that is weakness. All of that is human. And all of it was being used against you, every tender second of it, in a way designed to ensure that the reaching never stopped, that the hoping stayed just unresolved enough to keep you there, suspended in emotional anticipation, unable to move toward your mission because your nervous system was entirely occupied with decoding this connection. But something went wrong for them, something they had not accounted for. You did not stay suspended. You did something they had no protocol for. You started watching, not with suspicion, not with the kind of brittle self-protection that closes people off and makes them cold. You watched the way a scientist watches a phenomenon they are genuinely fascinated by. You let the experience be real while simultaneously holding yourself at enough of an internal distance to see the shape of it. You started noticing patterns. You started feeling the architecture underneath the feeling. You started asking not just what is this, but what is this for? What is this doing to me? What version of myself is this connection calling forward? And is that the version I actually want to become? Those questions changed everything, because the moment you moved from absorbed to observant, from lost in the feeling to curious about the mechanism, you shifted the terms of the entire engagement. You were no longer a target receiving an operation. You were a witness studying one. And the person on the other side, the one who had been sent to keep you distracted, they felt that shift. They felt the quality of your attention change. They felt you still present, still warm, still genuinely engaged with them as a human being, but no longer controllable, no longer reachable in the way they had been trained to reach you. And it unnerved them, not because they were malicious at their core, but because nothing in their programming had prepared them for someone who could stay open and grounded at the same time. Nothing had taught them what to do when the target refused to either harden into defensiveness or dissolve into dependence. You offered them something entirely different. You offered them the experience of someone who could see them, really see them, without needing to own them or be owned by them. And that is what cracked them open. But because predicting it would have required them to understand something they fundamentally do not understand. They do not understand what happens when two people who carry real frequency encounter each other. They understand how to exploit longing. They understand how to manufacture the feeling of recognition. They understand how to use the human need for belonging as a lever. But they do not understand what happens in the space between two people when neither one is trying to control the other. They do not understand the specific alchemy of that space, the way truth moves in it, the way dormant things wake in it, the way two people can hold each other, not as possessions, but as witnesses, and what that witnessing does to what has been hidden. They sent someone into that space, expecting to extract something from you. What happened instead was that the space itself transformed both of you, and they were watching from outside it, with all their data and all their strategy, completely unable to see what was actually occurring, because the thing that was occurring was something their entire system is designed to prevent from existing. So now what? Now both of you are walking around outside their predicted parameters. Now there are two people where there was supposed to be one derailed, one controlled, one distraction successfully deployed. Instead, there are two people who see the game clearly. Two people whose immunity to the usual manipulation has been strengthened by the precise experience that was meant to weaken it. Two people who look at each other and find not obsession but accountability, not dependence but alignment, not the codependency that keeps people small and controllable, but something far more threatening to every system that relies on human smallness. They are watching this, and they are trying to calculate their next move, and the problem is that every move they can make now makes things worse for them. If they try to create conflict between you, they risk deepening the bond by giving you a shared adversary. If they try to pull the other person back into their original programming, that person's new awareness makes them a compromised operative who now knows too much. If they try to introduce new distractions, both of you are now running the same pattern recognition software that caught the last one. Every tool in their arsenal has been neutralized by the very experience they engineered. This is what a catastrophic strategic failure looks like. This is what happens when a system underestimates the people it is trying to contain. But do not let the victory make you comfortable. Do not let the beauty of this reversal make you think the game is over, because it is not. What just happened is not the end of anything. It is a beginning, specifically a beginning they are going to work very hard to interrupt, because you represent something they cannot allow to spread. You represent proof that the trap can become the initiation. You represent evidence that the weapon can become the teacher. You represent a living demonstration that what is sent to diminish someone can, when that someone is grounded enough and clear enough and sovereign enough, become the precise thing that accelerates their evolution beyond what was ever planned for them. And if people see that, if people understand that their most painful experiences might be deliberate provocations designed to derail them, and more importantly, if they understand that those provocations do not have to work, that there is another way to metabolize them entirely, the control system loses one of its most effective tools. So you become the thing they fear most, which is not an angry person, or a loud person, or a person making declarations about how awake they are. No. The thing they fear most is a quiet person building something real, in alignment with someone else who is also building something real. Neither of you distracted by the noise they are still generating, both of you so deeply rooted in your own clarity that the usual provocations slide off without purchase. That is the threat level they are currently managing, and they are not managing it well. Here is what you need to understand about the person who came into your life wearing the face of destiny. They are not your enemy. They never were. Not really. Not at the level that actually matters. At the level of mechanism, yes, they were deployed against you. But at the level of soul, at the level of whatever is most fundamentally true about both of you, they were a catalyst you needed and did not know you needed. Because here is the uncomfortable thing about evolving past a certain point. The lessons stop coming in the form of obvious teachers. They start coming disguised as the things you most want, because the things you most want are the places where your attachment lives. And attachment is where the unexamined material hides. You cannot be tested by something you do not care about. The intensity of the pull you felt was proportional to the depth of the thing it was asking you to look at. And what it was asking you to look at was whether you had truly integrated the knowledge that no external connection, no matter how exquisite, how resonant, how cosmically perfect it seems, is worth more than the thread back to yourself. You passed the test, not cleanly, not without stumbling, not without spending real time inside the confusion it created, but you passed it, and passing it at this level means you have earned access to something that was not available to you before, which is the knowledge, not the idea, but the cellular, embodied knowledge, that you can be moved without being swept away, that you can be genuinely touched by another person without losing your footing, that you can love without making someone else your anchor or your identity or your reason for being, that you can meet someone at the level of real depth and still stay fundamentally oriented toward your own north. And the person they sent? They are learning the same thing in reverse. They came in with a role, a script, a purpose that was not their own. They leave with questions that are entirely their own. They came in as an instrument of someone else's agenda. They leave as someone beginning the long and beautiful and terrifying process of discovering what their own agenda actually is. That is not a small thing. That is everything. That is the beginning of a life that actually belongs to them. and they have you to thank for it, not because you did anything strategic, not because you were playing a counter game, but because you simply refused to be anything other than what you were. And that refusal was the most radical and contagious thing they had ever encountered. Now think about the mechanics of what happens next. Think about the ripple effect of two people who were supposed to cancel each other out, instead amplifying each other. Think about what becomes possible when two people who have both been tested at this level choose to stay in each other's orbit, not from neediness, not from fear of being alone, not from the romantic mythology that insists that every meaningful connection must become a merger, but from the clear-eyed recognition that proximity to someone operating at this level of consciousness makes both of you sharper, more accountable, more difficult to distract. Think about what that models for everyone watching, because people are watching. They always are. And what they are going to see is not the drama the architects were counting on. They are going to see two people building. Two people holding each other to their highest potential with the kind of fierce tenderness that says, I will not let you make me your excuse to shrink, and I will not let you watch me shrink either. Two people demonstrating that it is possible to be deeply connected and deeply sovereign at the same time, that these things are not in opposition, that the deepest connections are precisely the ones that demand you be the most yourself rather than the least. That demonstration is dangerous to every system that profits from people being half versions of themselves. Every structure that depends on people being too distracted, too emotionally dysregulated, too caught up in romantic obsession to notice what is being built around them. That structure trembles when two people stand in front of it and say, we see it, we name it, we are not playing this game. And we are going to keep saying that loudly enough that other people start hearing it and starting asking their own questions. This is how change actually happens, not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through the quiet, relentless, exponential spread of people waking up to the game and choosing differently. Two people becomes four, four becomes 20, 20 becomes the beginning of something that the architects of the old system have no framework for and no defense against. You did not just survive a trap, you dismantled one. You did not just resist a distraction, you extracted every ounce of intelligence from it and used that intelligence to level up in ways that would not have been possible without the pressure it applied. You did not just maintain your path, you widened it, deepened it, made it more resilient by walking it through fire and arriving on the other side, knowing in your bones that it is yours, that nothing can take it from you, that your commitment to your own evolution is not something that bends under the weight of longing or loneliness or the intoxicating promise of finally being known. And the person who found you or was sent to you or arrived in your life by whatever mechanism the truth underneath this story uses, they are now carrying something they will never be able to put down. The memory of what it felt like to be near someone who would not abandon themselves for anything. The memory of what genuine sovereignty looks like in a human body, in real time, under real pressure. The memory of what it woke up in them. That memory is a seed, and seeds are patient. They do not ask permission. They work in the dark, in the quiet, underneath the noise of everything that is still trying to keep them from growing. And one day, when the conditions are right, when the timing is their own and not assigned to them by someone else's agenda, they will break the surface. And what comes up will be entirely theirs. This is what they never tell you about surviving the sophisticated traps. The ones that are built specifically for you, the ones that know your wounds and your hungers and your specific variety of hope. The thing they never tell you is that surviving one of those, really surviving it, not just getting through it but metabolizing it completely, changes the fundamental composition of who you are. You become someone who has been tested at the deepest level of your most significant weakness and discovered that the weakness was not what you thought it was. What looked like a longing that could be weaponized against you turned out to be a longing so thoroughly integrated, so deeply understood, so radically accepted as your own, rather than something to be filled by something outside you, that it became a source of stability rather than vulnerability. You came in carrying a wound, you leave carrying a scar, and a scar is not a wound. A scar is proof of healing. A scar is denser than the tissue around it. A scar is, in the most literal biological sense, stronger than the skin that was there before the injury. So when they look at you now, when whatever was tracking your trajectory looks at the current coordinates and tries to calculate their next intervention, what they see is someone who is not just back on track, someone who is further along the track than they would have been if none of this had happened, someone who has been refined by the exact process that was designed to derail them, someone who is operating with a clarity and a groundedness and an immunity to the usual tactics that could not have been acquired any other way. Someone who is, by every measurable metric, more dangerous to their system than they were before the operation began. And beside that person, building in alignment, refusing to be anyone's distraction or anyone's excuse, is someone who was supposed to be their instrument, now their ally, now their mirror, now someone in the earliest chapters of their own long becoming. This is the outcome they cannot recover from, not because it defeats them in one moment, in one battle, in one operation gone wrong, but because of what it demonstrates is possible, because of what it will spread to everyone who witnesses it, because of the questions it will plant in people who did not even know they needed to be asking them. The game only works as long as people do not know it is being played. The trap only functions as long as people believe the thing they are walking toward is what it appears to be. The distraction only succeeds as long as the person being distracted has not yet learned to watch their own reactions with enough curiosity to see the strings attached to them. You learned. You are watching now. And the watching cannot be undone. The clarity you have earned cannot be revoked. The alliance that was supposed to be your undoing cannot be dismantled from the outside, because it was not built from the outside. It was built from the deepest place in both of you, from the recognition between two people who have both, by entirely different paths, arrived at the same refusal. The refusal to be small, the refusal to be controllable, the refusal to abandon the thread of their own truth for anything the world puts in front of them. No matter how beautiful, no matter how magnetic, no matter how perfectly calibrated to the specific texture of their longing it happens to be. They sent their best. You turned it into your becoming. And that is not just a personal victory, that is a message that travels in the frequency of how you walk now, how you build now, how you engage with the next person who comes into your life wearing the face of fate. The message is simple, and it is devastating to everything that profits from your confusion. You cannot be bought with belonging. You cannot be derailed with desire. You cannot be stopped with the promise of finally being understood, because you understand yourself now in a way that leaves no gap for someone else's agenda to fill. And that understanding, that radical, hard-won, fire-tested understanding, is the most powerful thing you have ever held. Hold it carefully. Build with it deliberately. Share it quietly with everyone who is still trying to find their way out of the trap, because they are out there, still suspended in the longing, still trying to decode a connection that was never meant to be decoded but only to consume them, still waiting for someone to show them that another way is possible. Let that someone be you. Let what they did to you become what you do for them. Let the weapon become the warning. Let the trap become the map. Let the thing that was built to keep you small become the first thing you offer to everyone still trying to remember how to be big. Claude is AI and C.